That's just Wayne Mitten going at lightning speed.
I think we might need to start calling Wayne Mitten, the Flash, after that incredible lap time. What do you think, John?
Taihan Van Ruyen is not as quick as they were hoping for. They're going to need to dig deep and find some extra pace on this next one if they want to move up the grid.
That's right, it's all or nothing now. They need to stay focused, hit their marks, and extract every ounce of performance from that car to move up the grid.
Taihan Van Ruyen will be happy having put themselves into fourth in this qualifying session.
Every fraction of a second counts. I'm sure they can find a little extra in there.
Richard Reshka looks to be off the pace. Annie, what do you think they need to do to improve? Richard Reshka will be happy having put themselves into first in this qualifying session.
It may be difficult for them to improve further on that. Sometimes trying too hard makes you slower. They need to drive smooth and smart.
Woohoo! Ernest Heather is really turning up the heat out there. I'm getting goosebumps just watching them go.
Well, John, it seems like Ernest Heather has got the need for speed and nothing is going to stop them now.
Ernest Heather will be happy having put themselves into second in this qualifying session.
Every fraction of a second counts. I'm sure they can find a little extra in there.
Wayne Mitten is not as quick as they were hoping for. They're going to need to dig deep and find some extra pace on this next one if they want to move up the grid. Jeevan Davis looks to be off the pace. Annie, what do you think they need to do to improve?
Looks like Jeevan Davis is really cooking with gas out there today.
Time to bring out the marshmallows and let's toast some fuel. Ernest Heather is not as quick as they were hoping for. They're going to need to dig deep and find some extra pace on this next one if they want. Ernest Heather will be happy having put themselves into second in this qualifying session.
It may be difficult for them to improve further on that. Sometimes trying too hard makes you slower. They need to drive smooth and smart.
A strong showing from Danny Van Ruyen as they currently sit in third. With the session drawing to a close, they'll need to dig deep and find that extra burst of speed to improve.
Great analysis, John. Danny Van Ruyen has shown excellent pace to secure third. Now, the focus shifts to whether they can use their track position to their advantage in the race.
Incredible drive by Ernest Heather so far, earning them second on the grid. However, the competition is fierce. Will they be able to find that extra edge to move up? Ernest Heather will be happy having put themselves into second in this qualifying session.
Every fraction of a second counts. I'm sure they can find a little extra in there.
Annie, the drivers are ready. Let the racing begin?
Yes, John. Let the racing begin.
Richard Reshka will lead the way from pole position. Green flag. Green flag.
Concentration is crucial as they navigate through the pack and try to establish a strong position. The best drivers know how to find their rhythm quickly.
And they're off. Richard Reshka is showing some real gusto, making up positions right away. I wonder if they had an extra cup of coffee this morning, Annie?
With a start like that, Richard Reshka might be looking to add a few more fans to their cheering section today.
I think passing is going to be difficult today here at MIDVAAL Raceway Reverse, so it's going to be interesting to see how these drivers get on. It's brilliant to see such a full grid here today. As we watch the drivers fight it out in the first lap, I can already feel that this is going to be an epic race.
There are a few drivers with a point to prove, and a few with some grudges to bear. Will we see a clean race today?
We're starting to see who really has the pace now in this race as Wayne Midden is starting to climb all over the back of Tijhan van Ruyen. Any closer and they may need to pop the boot.
Yeah, Wayne Midden is likely going to be sniffing up the inside of Tijhan van Ruyen as they come into T1.
This is a thrilling battle as Wayne Midden edges closer to Tijhan van Ruyen in their fight for P4. This is where the race gets really interesting. Greg Hoffert is closing in on Rian Barkhuizen. The intensity is off the charts as Wayne Midden hounds Tijhan van Ruyen, both drivers pushing themselves to the absolute limit. It looks like Joost Haystack is all over Wayne Midden. I think they are going to press them through T8 and try and press for a mistake.
For sure, John, that's exactly what I would be doing here, as Wayne Midden is going to be aware of them riding their bumper.
Greg Hoffert has the pedal to the metal chasing Rian Barkhuizen.
Do they have the speed for a move, and more importantly, do they have the talent?
The race is really heating up. Ulrich Kleinhans is hunting down Greg Hoffert with everything they've got. Superb driving from Ulrich Kleinhans, who with that overtake has gained a position in the race.
You can't argue with results like that. Ulrich Kleinhans is really making their mark on this race.
Annie, can you share some strategies that drivers use to manage tire degradation during a race?
Certainly, John. Some strategies include adjusting the car's setup for better tire life, altering driving lines to reduce wear, and using tire management techniques like lift and coast to preserve grip for as long as possible.
Greg Hoffert is holding 9th, but JP Brand is right on their tail. pursuit is on. JP Brand is closing the gap on Greg Hoffert, determined to claim P9. Looks like that's a mistake from Danny Van Ruyen. This could be costly.
Danny Van Ruyen is not going to be happy about that.
The battle for 8 is heating up as Greg Hoffert tries to catch Jeevan Davis in P8.
This is where every inch counts. Greg Hoffert is pushing hard to close the gap on Jeevan Davis. Absolutely, precision and control are key here. Knowing when to push and when to hold back can be the difference between winning and losing.
Wait, that won't be ideal for Joost Haystack. This is where legends are made. Which driver will rise to the occasion and claim victory? JP Brand is on a mission, chasing Greg Hoffert, who's desperately trying to stay ahead. The adrenaline is pumping as Warren Dodd gets within striking distance of JP Brand in their race for 10th.
It's a battle for position as Warren Dodd tries to make a move on JP Brand. This is what racing is all about.
Things are heating up as JP Brand tries to close the gap to Warren Dodd.
I think they are going to take them.
Warren Dodd wants to get into Jeevan Davis' slipstream.
If you're enjoying the racing, please remember to like and subscribe.
This is what it's all about, folks. Greg Hoffert is in hot pursuit of Warren Dodd, who's just trying to stay ahead. JP Brand is giving it their all as they chase down Greg Hoffert in P10.
That driver is really pushing the limits. They're riding the curbs and pushing the car to its limits.
Greg Hoffert appears to be trying to find a way round Warren Dodd. They could make a move on them in T9.
Can they make it past without taking the paint off?
The tension is high. Who will come out on top in this epic showdown?
I remember being in a similar situation during my racing days. JP Brand must stay focused and wait for the perfect opportunity to overtake.
It seems like JP Brand is struggling. They are not able to maintain their pace. In your experience, Annie, what was the most challenging aspect of maintaining concentration during a race?
The most challenging aspect, John, was managing the various inputs and distractions during the race, from radio communication with the team to monitoring car performance and race strategy. It's a delicate balancing act that requires immense mental discipline.
It's a classic case of chasing down the car ahead for Wayne Midden, who is currently in P5. But Taihan Van Ruyen is not making it easy, and the gap remains over a second. This will require some expert driving from Wayne Midden.
Indeed, the tension is high as Wayne Midden tries to reel in Taihan Van Ruyen. But Taihan Van Ruyen is not making it easy, maintaining a consistent pace. Can Wayne Midden find some extra pace to bring the fight to Taihan Van Ruyen?
It's neck and neck, the closest battle we've seen in a while.
A misjudgment by either driver could result in a close encounter of the tire barrier kind, and that's one handshake they'll want to avoid.
Wow, it's a close race for 10th. Warren Dodd is ahead with JP Brand right on their tail with a gap of only 0.2 seconds. This is what high-octane racing looks like. JP Brand is breathing down the neck of Warren Dodd. not giving them any room to relax. Oh, this is getting intense. Wayne Midden is just a few car lengths behind Taihan Van Ruyen. The pressure is on for JP Brand as they try to catch up to Warren Dodd. Looks like Wayne Midden is really pushing it to the limit. They're taking those curbs aggressively, but that can unsettle the car and cause handling issues.
Indeed, taking too much curb can upset the car's balance, leading to oversteer or understeer. It's all about finding the right balance between speed and control.
It looks like Rian Barkhuizen is pushing hard to catch up to Ulrich Kleinhans. The gap is over a second, but Rian Barkhuizen is not giving up just yet. Can they close the distance and make a move on Ulrich Kleinhans?
It's going to be tough for Rian Barkhuizen, as Ulrich Kleinhans seems to have found their rhythm. But anything can happen in racing, and we've seen Rian Barkhuizen pull off some impressive moves before. I'm excited to see if they can make it happen again.
Warren Dodd could be looking for a way up the inside of JP Brand.
Rubbing is racing. Let's hope they don't rub it too hard.
It's a game of cat and mouse out there, with Wayne Midden trying to find the perfect opportunity to make a move on Taihan Van Ruyen. The gap is over a second, but every fraction counts. Can Wayne Midden close in enough to mount a challenge?
It's moments like these that make motorsports so exciting. We're witnessing a battle of skill and strategy between two great drivers, with Wayne Midden in fifth determined to catch up. But we know Taihan Van Ruyen isn't just going to hand it to them on a plate. Wayne Midden is going to have to take it. It should be an interesting battle to watch as long as they can close that gap.
Rian Barkhuizen is pushing really hard, but as we know, pushing too hard can lead to other mistakes, like locking up the brakes or missing a shift. These drivers are walking a tightrope between pushing the limits and making costly errors.
Absolutely, it's all about finding that sweet spot where you're pushing the car to its limits without crossing the line into reckless driving. That's where experience and skill come into play. The gap between them is now just over 0.4 seconds. Who will come out on top?
The race is heating up as Warren Dodd in 11th closes in on JP Brand. The gap is just over a second, and I'm sure they are going to do everything possible to try and close the distance. They're not giving up without a fight.
This is where experience comes into play. JP Brand has been in this position before and knows how to defend their position. But Warren Dodd is hungry for success and won't give up easily. Will we see a clash of the titans?
The crowd is on tender hooks as Wayne Midden in 5th chases after Taihan Van Ruyen. The gap is just over a second, and you can feel the tension in the air. Can Wayne Midden find a way to catch up? The gap between Rian Barkhuizen and Ulrich Kleinhans is razor thin as they vie for 6th in this nail-biting contest.
Should things go awry, Rian Barkhuizen and Ulrich Kleinhans might find themselves giving a whole new meaning to the term tandem drifting, though I doubt they'd enjoy it as much as the spectators.
The gap between Taihan Van Ruyen in 4th and Richard Reschke remains over a second, but Taihan Van Ruyen is not letting up. They're pushing hard and looking for any opportunity to close that gap up. Can they pull it back in the remaining 1 minute?
Absolutely. Taihan Van Ruyen in 4th will need to be patient and carefully work to reduce that gap without overdriving it, as they can't afford to take unnecessary risks and risk an off or damaging their car. Let's see if they have what it takes to get back into the game here.
This is a thrilling battle as Wayne Midden edges closer to Taihan Van Ruyen in their fight for P4. It's a battle of wills out there, with Rian Barkhuizen trying to outsmart and outmaneuver Ulrich Kleinhans. The gap is slowly closing, but time is running out. Will we see a dramatic finish to this race? The tension is building as Wayne Midden trails behind Taihan van Ruyen. The gap is slowly but surely decreasing, and the pressure is mounting. Can Taihan van Ruyen hold on, or will Wayne Midden be able to close them down? This is where the skill and experience of the drivers really come into play. Rian Barkhuizen will need to stay focused and keep pushing, even when the gap seems insurmountable. It's not over until the checkered flag drops.
Indeed, the tension is high as Rian Barkhuizen tries to reel in Ulrich Kleinhans. But Ulrich Kleinhans is not making it easy, maintaining a consistent pace. Can Rian Barkhuizen find some extra pace to bring the fight to Ulrich Kleinhans?
Taihan van Ruyen is placed fourth at the moment. They are hoping to keep their distance ahead of Wayne Midden, who is 0.4 seconds behind. This is where the race gets really interesting. Rian Barkhuizen is closing in on Ulrich Kleinhans.
It's a fine line between pushing the car to its limits and losing control. Rian Barkhuizen is really walking that tightrope.
Ulrich Kleinhans is looking for an opportunity to get round Rian Barkhuizen. Breaking update. Oh my, Rian Barkhuizen has had an incident.
Whoops, Rian Barkhuizen is going to be kicking themselves.
Pushing too hard can lead to mistakes, and we're seeing that now. That car is really unsettled as they push for every last bit of speed. The race is really heating up. Joost Haystack is hunting down Warren Dodd with everything they've got.
One important aspect here is choosing the right braking points. Joost Haystack needs to be precise to avoid overshooting and losing valuable time.
No room for error here. Taihan van Ruyen is breathing down the neck of Richard Reschke, waiting for the perfect chance to make their move.
And the drivers know it too, John. They're giving it everything they've got, and you can see them pushing the limits of the car's capabilities.
Wayne Midden is running fifth. They're trying to catch Taihan van Ruyen.
The tension between Wayne Midden and Taihan van Ruyen is palpable as they battle for P4. No doubt, both drivers know that one mistake could cost them the position. It's a test of nerves as much as skill.
On the final lap now, and Danny van Ruyen looks like they might just wrap up this win.
They're not leaving anything on the table.
And that, folks, is how it's done. A solid performance and great win from Danny van Ruyen.
You can see the sheer determination on Danny van Ruyen's face as they take the win. That's the mark of a true champion, folks.
A nail-biting finish, but Ernest Heather claims second place.
Impressive performance. They pushed themselves to the limit for a fantastic second-place finish.
What a race from Taihan van Ruyen, showing their skill and determination for a great third-place finish.
Great job bringing it home.
Richard Reschke, Wayne Midden, Ulrich Kleinhans, and Greg Hofford in 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th. Followed by J.P. Brand, Warren Dodd, Jeevan Davis, and Joost Haystack in 8th, 9th, 10th, and 11th. Finishing 12th and 13th is Rian Barkhuizen and Peter Geldenhuys. It's a very still day here at MIDVAAL Raceway Reverse, as we're getting ready to kick things off.
The tension's building now. This is going to be another great race.
Starting from pole position is the perfect place for Jeevan Davis to launch an attack.
But they can't let that advantage go to waste. They will need to stay focused and keep their eyes on the prize.
And in the second position, it's none other than Warren Dodd. And in third place, we have JP Brand. The starting signal has been given, and the drivers face the uncertainty of the first lap. With cars packed tightly together, the potential for spins or collisions is high.
Precision is everything during these initial stages. One wrong move could cost them valuable time or even force them out of the race.
The stewards will be hoping that there aren't too many incidents for them to pick over when the dust settles on this one. The tension is high here. No one will want to make a crucial mistake on the first lap. As the drivers get this race underway, let me give a shout out to the admin team at Simspeed Motorsports for making this all possible. Heroes one and all. The racing is normally closely fought here at MIDVAAL Raceway Reverse. I think we are in for a cracking race. It looks like Ernest Heather is pushing hard to catch up to Taihan Van Ruyen. The gap is over a second, but Ernest Heather is not giving up just yet. Can they close the distance and make a move on Taihan Van Ruyen? Joost Haystack is looking to take advantage of that arrow as they get in range of Wayne Midden. That's gonna give them the pull they need to mount a challenge very soon.
This is a tight race and Wayne Midden is doing a great job of holding them off. It will be interesting to see if Joost Haystack can make a move.
Every move counts now as Richard Reshka works to reel in Joost Haystack and overtake for P11.
Will Richard Reshka be able to make a move and pass Joost Haystack?
Seems like JP Brand is getting in range of Jeevan Davis. Taihan Van Ruyen is on a mission, chasing Ulrich Kleinhans, who's desperately trying to stay ahead. We got a close battle as Ernest Heather closes in on Greg Hoffert. Rian Barkhuizen seems to be putting the pressure on Danny Van Ruyen. It's a game of inches now as JP Brand tails Jeevan Davis closely, ready to capitalize on any mistake. It's a close race between Ulrich Kleinhans and Taihan Van Ruyen in fourth. A great moment for Ulrich Kleinhans, who has just gained a place and moved up the standings.
Impressive. Ulrich Kleinhans is really showing their skill and determination out there.
It's a game of cat and mouse out there, with Greg Hoffert trying to find the perfect opportunity to make a move on Ernest Heather. The gap is over a second, but every fraction counts. Can Greg Hoffert close in enough to mount a challenge?
That's right. Greg Hoffert in 7th knows they have to push to the limit if they want to catch up.
Breaking update. I don't think that's the fastest way around MIDVAAL Raceway reverse.
Did the wind contribute to that? It's blowing at 3 kph out there right now.
The crowd is on tender hooks as JP Brand in second chases after Warren Dodd. The gap is just over a second, and you can feel the tension in the air. Can JP Brand find a way to catch up? This is what racing is all about. Two fierce competitors pushing each other to the limit.
They say rubbing is racing, but if Ernest Heather gets too close, they might end up trading carbon fiber souvenirs instead of positions.
The battle for 7 is heating up as Danny Van Ruyen tries to catch Greg Hoffert in P7. What a move! Danny Van Ruyen has moved up to 7th. Wow, Richard Reschke is really pushing hard to catch up to Joost Heystek. There's blood in the water for 10th place. Great driving from Richard Reschke, who has just gained a place and moved up to 10th. Coming into T9, the fight for 10th is heating up. Who will be the first to blink? The pursuit is on. Tijhan Van Ruyen is closing the gap on Warren Dodd, determined to claim P1.
It's all about finding the perfect opportunity. Tijhan Van Ruyen needs to stay patient and wait for Warren Dodd to make a mistake.
Ulrich Kleinhans is giving it their all as they chase down Tijhan Van Ruyen in P2.
The gap is 0.3 seconds now. Ulrich Kleinhans is going to have to work a bit harder to close that gap with Tijhan Van Ruyen.
This is where the skill and precision of the drivers really comes into play. Danny Van Ruyen is chasing Jeevan Davis in P5.
The gap between them is just over 0.3 seconds. Can Danny Van Ruyen close that gap and get back in range? I can't see it happening at this point.
The gap between Ernest Heather and JP Brand may be wide, but that doesn't mean Ernest Heather is safe. They have to keep their concentration and avoid any lapses in performance. Peter Geldenhuys wants to find a way round Richard Reschke. Things are heating up as Ulrich Kleinhans closes in on Greg Hoffert. The gap between them is down to practically nothing.
It's a thrilling battle for position as these two drivers give it their all. Who will come out on top? This is racing at its finest.
It's a battle of wills out there, each driver trying to outsmart and outmaneuver the other. Ernest Heather is pushing really hard, but as we know, pushing too hard can lead to other mistakes, like locking up the brakes or missing a shift. These drivers are walking a tightrope between pushing the limits and making costly errors.
Absolutely. It's all about finding that sweet spot where you're pushing the car to its limits without crossing the line into reckless driving. That's where experience and skill come into play. The gap between them is just over 0.3 seconds. Who will have the speed and skill to come out on top?
Look at that. Warren Dodd is hot on the tail of Ernest Heather.
Who will be able to maintain their pace and come out on top?
The action is non-stop as Richard Reschke shadows JP Brand through every twist and turn, determined to claim 8th. Oh, this is getting intense. Danny Van Ruyen is just behind Tijhan Van Ruyen.
It's a battle of nerves now. Who will make the first mistake? Danny Van Ruyen or Tijhan Van Ruyen? This is high-stakes racing.
JP Brand has the pedal to the metal chasing Richard Reshka. Oh, this is getting intense. Danny Van Ruyen is just a few car lengths behind Taihan Van Ruyen. It's like watching two predators circling each other, waiting for the perfect moment to pounce. Tough break for Ernest Heather, who has just lost a position. Warren Dodd has a battle on their hands now as they come through T5 with Greg Hoffert hot on their tail.
If Greg Hoffert gets any closer to the back of Warren Dodd, then one of them is gonna need some lube, if they want to take this further.
Looks like Jeevan Davis is really pushing it to the limit. They're taking those curves aggressively, but that can unsettle the car and cause handling issues.
Indeed, taking too much curb can upset the car's balance, leading to oversteer or understeer. It's all about finding the right balance between speed and control.
The race is really heating up. Taihan Van Ruyen is hunting down Danny Van Ruyen with everything they've got.
Sometimes you have to take risks to win, but pushing the car too hard can be a costly mistake. Taihan Van Ruyen needs to be careful not to overdo it.
This is a thrilling battle as JP Brand edges closer to Richard Reshka in their fight for P7. It's a classic case of chasing down the car ahead for Taihan Van Ruyen, who is currently in P5. But Danny Van Ruyen is not making it easy, and the gap remains over a second. This will require some expert driving from Taihan Van Ruyen.
It's moments like these that make motorsports so exciting. We're witnessing a battle of skill and strategy between two great drivers, with Taihan Van Ruyen in fifth determined to catch up. But we know Danny Van Ruyen isn't just going to hand it to them on a plate. Taihan Van Ruyen is going to have to take it. It should be an interesting battle to watch as long as they can close that gap.
I'm sure JP Brand in 8th is starting to notice Joost Haystack is right on their tail, and is still Hold on a second. Now I may be wrong here, but I'm not sure that's the racing line.
It's a real shame. Until this point in the race, they'd been looking at a decent result.
This is where the race gets really interesting. Danny Van Ruyen is closing in on Ulrich Kleinhans. Pushing too hard can lead to mistakes, and we're seeing that now. That car is really unsettled as they push for every last bit of speed. Ulrich Kleinhans is on a mission, chasing Danny Van Ruyen, who's desperately trying to stay ahead. The race is heating up as Joost Haystack in 8th closes in on JP Brand. The gap is just over a second, and I'm sure they are going to do everything possible to try and close the distance. They're not giving up without a fight. The tension is building as Ulrich Kleinhans trails behind Danny Van Ruyen. The gap is slowly but surely decreasing, and the pressure is mounting. Can Danny Van Ruyen hold on, or will Ulrich Kleinhans be able to close them down?
It's a nail-biting race for sure, with both drivers showing incredible skill and determination. But Danny Van Ruyen is not going to give up their position easily. This is going to be a battle to the very end, with Ulrich Kleinhans in P3 doing everything they can to catch up.
The pursuit is on. Ernest Heather is closing the gap on Taihan Van Ruyen, determined to claim P4.
You can see that car bouncing around as they ride the curves. It's a risky move that could end in disaster.
The gap between JP Brand in 7th and Richard Reshka remains over a second, but JP Brand is not letting up. They're pushing hard and looking for any opportunity to close that gap up. Can they pull it back in the remaining 1 minute? Things are heating up as Ernest Heather tries to close the gap to Taihan Van Ruyen.
With just 0.4 seconds between them, will Ernest Heather be able to keep up the pace and make a pass?
Ernest Heather has just put in a faster lap than Taihan Van Ruyen, so that's going to give them something to worry about. It's a battle of wills out there, with Jeevan Davis trying to outsmart and outmaneuver Warren Dodd. The gap is slowly closing, but time is running out. Will we see a dramatic finish to this race?
Absolutely. Jeevan Davis in 12th will need to be patient and carefully work to reduce that gap without overdriving it, as they can't afford to take unnecessary risks and risk an off or damaging their car. Let's see if they have what it takes to get back into the game here.
Ernest Heather is giving it their all as they chase down Taihan Van Ruyen in P4. It's a game of cat and mouse out there, with Danny Van Ruyen trying to find the perfect opportunity to make a move on Greg Hoffert. The gap is over a second, but every fraction counts. Can Danny Van Ruyen close in enough to mount a challenge?
Indeed, the tension is high as Danny Van Ruyen tries to reel in Greg Hoffert. But Greg Hoffert is not making it easy, maintaining a consistent pace. Can Danny Van Ruyen find some extra pace to bring the fight to Greg Hoffert?
The intensity is off the charts as Ernest Heather hounds Taihan Van Ruyen, both drivers pushing themselves to the absolute limit. Danny Van Ruyen is pushing really hard, but as we know, pushing too hard can lead to other mistakes, like locking up the brakes or missing a shift. These drivers are walking a tightrope between pushing the limits and making costly errors.
Absolutely. It's all about finding that sweet spot where you're pushing the car to its limits without crossing the line into reckless driving. That's where experience and skill come into play. This is where every inch counts. Danny Van Ruyen is pushing hard to close the gap on Greg Hoffert. Absolutely, precision and control are key here. Knowing when to push and when to hold back can be the difference between winning and losing.
Every move counts now as JP Brand works to reel in Richard Reshka and overtake for P6.
I think they are going to take them.
It's like Greg Hoffert has saved all their energy for this final stretch. The leader has just finished the race. A fantastic result for Greg Hoffert. Danny Van Ruyen takes second place with a fantastic race.
Intense race, but Danny Van Ruyen held their nerve and earned a great second place.
Well done to Ulrich Kleinhans for securing third place on the podium.
Impressive driving to secure that spot.
Coming in 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th we have Taihan Van Ruyen, Ernest Heather, Richard Reshka, and JP Brand. 8th, 9th, 10th, and 11th sees Joost Haystack, Rian Barkhuizen, Peter Geldenhuys, and Warren Dodd. In 12th, it's Jeevan Davis. Wayne Midden brings home 13th.